Hey guys, okay, this is going to be a response video to the video that Gemini uploaded, I think it was yesterday, in which he asked the question, why do so many people talk about the indies as opposed to talking about the old school wrestling, or in particular WCW? He asked this question and he wondered why, if he were ever to upload videos about old school wrestling, then there would be a lack of interest in it. He was just questioning that, and I'm going to respond to it, and I'm going to give my interpretation of old school wrestling and how it can relate to today, because I think that that would be the bone of contention towards many people not talking about these old school promotions. AWA, WCCW, NWA, WCW, those promotions, the fact that we cannot relate them to today. Those of us who were not there to witness these promotions while they were active need to really have something to relate them to today, and that might be the thing that kind of prevents a lot of fans from reaching out and actually trying these old school promotions. But the first thing I would say, though, is that you talked about indie fans and how, you know, why do we only talk about indies as opposed to talking about other wrestling? But that's the thing. We turned on to independent promotions because we wanted something different. We wanted something that wasn't being satisfied by what we were currently seeing in WWE and TNA. We wanted something more because we knew that we liked wrestling, but what we were seeing on TV wasn't the kind of wrestling we liked. So we tried to find out something else, and we found an independent promotion. Sometimes we found several promotions that we liked and that we have stuck with. And you know, I'm sure, Gemini, you've came across people that you might be basing your generalization of indie fans on. Maybe you're not. Maybe I'm just being out there with that. But the kind of fan who would go, fuck WWE and fuck TNA and Ring of Honor is the best, and if you don't watch indie wrestling, you're not a real wrestling fan. I'm sure you've met people or come across people like that, and there are people like that, unfortunately. But I think for those of us who are indie fans but are considerate of other fans, we would be willing to open our mind enough to not only watch indie wrestling, but watch all different kinds of wrestling, including the old stuff. I think that is a given for any indie fan who was open-minded enough to explore wrestling that doesn't have the biggest budget, doesn't have the best lighting, doesn't have TV time, doesn't have pay-per-view deals. You know, we were open-minded enough to watch those promotions. Why not? Why wouldn't we try to expand into old school wrestling if we thought that we might like it? And I have done that. I have done that several times. Right here with me, I have the Starrcade DVD that the WWE released last year. I bought this because I wanted to explore some old school wrestling, and I have found some stuff that, okay, admittedly, I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much as the people who were actually there at the time. That's a given. But I found some matches on there that I actually really enjoyed, and one in particular that I thought I went crazy for as much as any fan who was there at the time, and that was the I Quit match at Starrcade 85 between Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard. I love that match. I watched that match. That was my favourite match on the DVD. I just thought it was amazing to watch and really gritty and believable and that kind of thing. I really love that match. It's pretty much overtaken Mankind and The Rock at Rumble 99 as my favourite I Quit match of all time. You know, I really love that match. I could really see that for those fans who were there in 1985, that match was way ahead of its time, because even today we still have fans like myself who went crazy for that match. So there you go. And after I finished that DVD, I went ahead and tried to find out what was generally regarded as the best NWA WCW pay-per-view of all time, and the consensus seemed to be that it was the Great American Bash 1989. And I found that pay-per-view. I don't think it's on DVD. I don't think the WWE has released it, but I did try and find it on a download link, and I did watch it, and I was blown away by some of the stuff that was on it. You know, probably some of the stuff like the tuxedo match wouldn't really relate to me today because I didn't see that feud in its heyday, but it was kind of entertaining at the same time. But the main event I thought was a great brawl. I thought that was outstanding brawl to watch. The Ric Flair Terry Funk match. So there was definitely some stuff on that card that I enjoyed, and I could recognize it for what it was. One of the best pay-per-views for its time. So, you know, I think that independent wrestling fans, some, I would hope that most, would be open-minded enough to kind of reach out and try these old school wrestling promotions and see if they like them, like I have done, as I have just shown you. And but what can you do to try and get more people to actually do that? What can you do to actually try and get more people to sample these not independent, old wrestling promotions? To me, the deciding factor, as I've said before, would be to relate it to today somewhat. You know, Instant Classic G1 made the point in his response video that I'm going to expand on. He said that he was talking about how much he was a fan of Jake Roberts, and he said without Jake Roberts there wouldn't have been a Raven. That's a comparison that you have to make more if you want more people to sample these old wrestling promotions. That's my opinion on it, because, you know, if you can relate it in that sort of sense, you know, without Jake Roberts, who's an old school guy, there wouldn't have been a Raven, who is, you know, not really a new guy, but he was definitely more modern and, you know, more modern than any of the others. So, that to me is how you try and sell more people on the independent, or not on the independent, the old wrestling. That to me is, you make more comparisons like that to try and get people to think, okay, these are, you know, every wrestler has influences. Every current wrestler that we know today, that we all relate to today, they all have influences that they have watched or studied, or any other term you might care to use. They all have influences that maybe the people who actually are fans of these wrestlers would like to actually watch as well. You know, could you ask the question that without Ric Flair there wouldn't have been a HBK? You know, that one to me is a bit of a stretch, because I think if there wasn't a Ric Flair there would have still been a HBK, but maybe not the exact level of greatness of a HBK that we have grown to be accustomed to. It might not have been as great as Shawn Michaels as we actually got, but, you know, there would have been a lot of things that we didn't get if we didn't have Ric Flair, apart from a Shawn Michaels. That's I think that's a given. Would there have been the Hardy Boys without HBK? You know, a lot of people like the Hardy Boys, a lot of people are Hardy Boys fans. If without HBK doing the ladder match at WrestleMania 10, would there have been the Hardys doing their stunts at WrestleMania 17? That's a question you could ask. And, you know, the indie fans who love Ring of Honor, there wouldn't have been a Ring of Honor if there wasn't ECW. There's a well, not really old school. They were kind of the catalyst to get away from the old school, but they're still relatively old by today's standards. So, you know, you can make comparisons like that. So, you know, that ladder match at WrestleMania 10, I could expand on that a little bit. You know, that might seem pretty tame by today's standards, by all that they have done in ladder matches since then. The WrestleMania 10 ladder match might seem a little, you know, kind of not really that great, but I still love that match. I still watch that match and look, seem kind of amazed, because it made sense to have a ladder match with the fact that they were doing a storyline with the two IC title belts, and the finish I thought was outstanding. You know, with HBK getting his foot caught in the ropes, I thought that was, you know, it was a very storyline oriented match. The ladder was there for the purposes of storyline, not for the purposes of these insane stunts, and that to me is what defines that match, and that's what makes it the most famous ladder match, despite the fact that they've done so much crazy shit in ladder matches since then. So you have to find a way to kind of relate old school wrestling to what is relevant today, and then in that sense you might encourage more people to actually sample the product. So that's my little take on what fans need to kind of digest to kind of experience old school wrestling a little better. You know, maybe they're already doing that and I'm just kind of behind, but that's what I would do when I'm trying to watch old school wrestling. I would try and relate it to what's going on today, and kind of trying to see, this is what happened and that's what it led to right now. That's what I would do. Anyway, I'm out. Later.